We'll take you back to this story now. Residents of Hursthill informal settlement are protesting against City Power cutting illegal connections. Reporter Aviwe Mtila is on the ground for us. Aviwe, we understand that the situation has taken a dangerous turn. People are now stoning City Power officials.
Just some 5 minutes ago, Mfundo, we did see that stoning, but it was quickly put to rest by the South African Police Service members firing a few rubber bullets. You get to see here, this is one of the City Power officials on top of the shacks, Slovo shacks, disconnect these connections. You really get to see how dangerous the job is here, especially when the community members are as restless throwing stones. Anything could happen to the gentleman that you see there. In fact, I have found Isaac Mange, and I want to bring him into this conversation now, just to get a better understanding why the people. Thank you, Isaac, for joining us at eNCA. But really, the crux that we're getting on the ground, we're being told by residents here that they've been living here since 1994. They've had this cat and mouse between City Power and Joe Slovo in terms of putting up these illegal connections and having them cut down for the last 2 decades. Why isn't there a permanent solution to get the residents here electricity?
Thanks for having us. Look, in terms of the permanent solution, it doesn't start with City Power. In fact, we come at the tail end of this problem. The problem starts with housing. So the people erected the shacks here, which is a housing problem, human settlement problem. And so for them to get electricity, they need to basically go to human settlement. Human settlement should be the one to tell us that City Power, you can go and electrify those people. Because now we can actually roll the trucks in here and put on, the infrastructure for electricity. But if somebody comes, Aviwe comes and say, this is my private land, and take us to court, then it means we would have done illegality and basically electrify people on the land that does not belong to them, or the land belongs to the to government or something like that. So housing will be the ones that are best suited to know about that, and they will be able to do that. It will work in the city and City Power's favor to actually get everyone electrified, because in that way we will be able to know the capacity that is needed in this area. Currently, the capacity that we bring to this area of Crosby and Coronationville is the capacity for the formalized housing, the houses that we know that we have in our system. But it also assists us in terms of revenue collection if we can electrify all the 231 informal settlements that are in the city of Johannesburg, so that they do not steal electricity, and so that we are able to protect our infrastructure from it blowing up, being vandalized, and so forth, but also saving the community, because of it's dangerous with the bare wires that you saw behind me that are used as part of the electrification. They are dangerous for children, for even an ordinary person, older person. So if we are able to electrify, we'll be able to basically reducing the issues of electrification around this area.
Where's the disconnect then? Because if you're telling me you have the capacity to put up the electricity, it's human settlements that need to do the actual job on the ground. What are they saying to you as City Power? Do you give them feedback that we have the capacity, we just need your go ahead?
We do have capacity, but obviously when human settlements comes with a new development and say City Power come and bring electricity, there is some grant that comes from government to ensure that we electrify that area. So that capacity will basically also come from government itself to ensure that we do that. But as City Power, whenever there are resources for us to be able to do electrification, and whenever there are informal settlements that housing has actually approved for electrification. To give an example, the Princess Squatter camp in Rudaport has been approved for electrification, and we have started with the phase 1 of the electrification process there. Rugby club also in Rudaport, and many others have been approved for electrification, which is part of the projects that the city will be embarking upon to ensure that we provide electricity and improve the quality of life of our residents. However, there are still those that are not approved for that electrification process, and like I say, it will assist us as the city if we are able to be given a go-ahead to ensure that we provide electricity.
Okay, is this not then a futile exercise, given that I'm sure you've been back here many times where the connections that you've cut off have been put back up? It's not the only informal settlement that has that issue, because the residents are already promising that by this evening, the connections that you're cutting now will be back up. Is this not a futile exercise then?
It is not a futile exercise. In fact, the issue is that you are focusing on one side of those who do not have electricity. You're not focusing on the formalized housing that are actually inconvenience. Currently, as I'm talking to you, even last night, they did not have electricity electricity because of the vandalism that happens on their in-network, which is supposed to provide them electricity. They pay for that electricity, but they are not getting that electricity because of this problem that we are having. We don't get tired when we are doing these operations. We will come back again and do them, even if they can reconnect later. But remember, the issue of them reconnecting is a law enforcement issue. This is something that we are engaging JMPD and the police to ensure that when we leave, when our trucks roll out of here and we leave, they remain behind to ensure that those that reconnect themselves can be arrested and prosecuted. City Power provides the service of electricity, but in terms of prosecutions and arresting, it's actually the police that are doing that.
Have there been arrests? Because this has happened countless of times where the electricity connections have been put back up. Have there been an arrest, and is this the only solution that you have as City Power?
Yes, there have been several arrests in terms of the people that reconnect themselves to the infrastructure. In fact, the current task team that has been set up and led by General Mawela at the Gauteng Police is basically targeting some of the vandalism that is happening. It's not only about cable theft, but also vandalism of the infrastructure. So when illegal connections happen, vandalism happen. Our mini substations, I'll take you up the road. You'll see most of them have actually blown up. They are there. It's just shells that are remaining there. That way used to be the infrastructure that was providing electricity to these areas. So we have arrested people here. We have arrested people in Midrand, Rubber Ridge areas, Alexandra as well, even Lenasia. We have arrested people who are illegally connecting electricity. Also those who are actually selling electricity, because now you've got people within this squatter camp who will basically come with the cable, and then they connect other people and they rent out that electricity to those shacks. So those people are actually in our radar. We've got jiffies around here. They are not wearing visible clothing. They are around here and they are actually scouting some of those areas, and some of these arrests will basically be announced after that.
Just my parting question, do you have conversations then as City Power in terms of what happens when you cut off the electricity and leave behind, for example, it's winter now, these communities without any electricity? We've spoken to elderly people that have spoken about the chronic medication that needs to be refrigerated, just some of the burdens that they face without the electricity. Do you discuss what happens to the people that you leave behind, or maybe have any interventions in the interim when you cut off the electricity?
Look, it's unfortunate, obviously, that there will be people that are victims to our operations. There will be those who, as you say, older people, children, and so forth. But this is something that we have to do, because even if we don't do it, electricity keeps on tripping. As I mentioned, this area this past week alone has had electricity probably about two days. So the rest of the days it has been off because of the overloading, especially during this time of inclement weather, where demand is actually high because of the cold weather. So we actually are sitting between a rock and a hard place, where you've got the residents that are actually paying electricity. That's the ones where we're getting our revenue, saying that we are not getting that electricity that we are paying for because of the illegal connections next door. The very same people, remember, there have been electrocutions. Their taps are they shock. They get shocks when they touch their shower taps. They get shocks when they touch the gates and so forth. This is the same area where a couple was electrocuted and they died because of the shocks that are happening due to the vandalism that is happening when illegal connections are happening. So you've got those kind of issues that if we don't cut, they continue to happen and the people are dying. But if we cut, you're basically going to say there are those that we are leaving behind in this cold. So that is the kind of problem that we're having. And unfortunately, we just have to do our work and ensure that we protect those that are actually paying for electricity.
Okay, thank you very much. Isaac Mangena from City Power, basically saying that he's caught between a rock and a hard place. They do what they have to, he says, and it's not their prerogative. Theirs is to ensure that those that don't pay electricity are cut off, and of course, as the bitter winter comes in, they'll be left in the dark and in the cold. They say themselves, the people of Slovo, that they're willing to pay, but that's something that government has been failing them for the last 28 years, as we heard some of the elderly residents telling us that they've been living in Slovo since 1994.
No, a very difficult conversation there, because it's clear that there is some sort of working in silos here, where what we hear is that City Power will confine itself to its area of competency. What isn't their competency, in this instance human settlements, if they fail to confirm if this is not privately owned land, then they will wait. If it's 28 years, it's fine. They just confine to themselves to what is their competency. That's what I'm getting.
certainly you've hit it right on the nail in terms of their issues. They're saying that they have the capacity. In fact, they have been, when given the go-ahead as City Power, gone on to install the much-needed electricity. But of course, they can't do it without the adequate requirements and the go-ahead from human settlements to ensure that the dwellings that the people have been staying here for the last 28 years is not private property. Just some of those check and balances that they have to do as City Power, and they say on the ground that they're doing what they need to do. So government, for example, human settlements needs to step up in terms of assisting the people that have been living here in the squalor that you've been seeing for the last 28 years and providing them adequate shelter, just the basic human needs, as we see how inequality, the highest in the world, is laid out barely here, for example, in Slovo informal settlements.
All right, Aviwe, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks for that update. That's senior reporter Aviwe Mtila in Slovo informal settlement.